Hello. This week we are talking about figurative drawing, and by figurative we mean the drawing of the human figure. So throughout history, artists have been fascinated with depicting human form in their work, and here's an early example from late Renaissance of a study for a larger painting. So this is a pen and ink and red chalk, so the same material that we use. And here the artist has depicted an action scene with a pile of bodies. This particular image is called The Massacre of the Innocents. So it's a violent scene, but we see the bodies like intertwined and stacked up in a real active, like tons of dynamic line, lots of diagonals, lots of movement here. This is a contemporary piece by Carrie James Marshall, an incredible artist and illustrator. Everything is going to be all right. I just know it will. Is untitled from 2004. So here we see another mixed media on paper. It's essentially pen and ink, in this case marker as well, and of a depiction of a drawing, another active scene, people moving. So the drawing of the human figure is done by the human figure. We cannot separate the action of drawing from the body itself. And so this is Trisha Brown's performance, where she's drawing on a large piece of paper on the floor using drawing implements between her toes. So here we are illustrating the fact that you can't really separate the artist's body from the depiction of a body. Here's another Trisha Brown performance where she has placed some limitations on her body and made marks from a place of those limitations. So the resulting Trisha Brown drawings would often look like this, like perhaps she lay in the center and drew with her arms and legs just in the space that she could reach. So this is ash on paper, and I think it's significant. The figure is holding something that looks somewhat umbilical, and I think it's a meditation on life here. So this sort of idea of ashes to ashes, dust to dust. She's using ash to depict this somewhat, I don't know, it's an unusual figure. I'll let you decide what to make of it. I mean, charcoal is essentially ash, so there's something really elemental and human about fire and ash. Now for something completely different. We've looked at this image before. I can't remember exactly when in the semester we looked at this image, but this is an example of a very sort of linear storytelling using the human figure. So we get a lot of information here, and we can put together a story based on what the information that we're receiving from this drawing. So back to the Renaissance. This is Artemisia Gentileschi. She was probably the most well-known female Renaissance artist, extremely talented, and I think she's also known as pretty much the first feminist artist, at any rate. And when you take art history, Renaissance art history, you'll become quite familiar with her work. But this is just a self-portrait, black pencil on paper, and it's a very economic drawing. There's not a whole lot of lines. It's all just hatching to create some value and some three-dimensional modeling. And then this is one of Artemisia's, fully realized paintings. So here we see the head, the upper body, the hands are also very important in this composition. So this week we'll be drawing 3 studies: a full figure in front of a mirror, and a self-portrait head study, and our hand. So kind of taking Artemisia as a point of departure. Thomas Eakins, study of a seated nude woman wearing a mask. So this also has a kind of a 2020 vibe to it. I don't think we've worn many masks throughout history as much as we have recently. So this, however, was from the from the 1800s. Charcoal and stump on paper, blending stump. So the same materials we're using. Joan Mitchell. Now you might remember Joan Mitchell from the discussion board on abstraction. This is the same painter. So one of the things that you probably know, but maybe some of you don't, is that almost every artist of note has a strong background in academic drawing and has studied realistic drawing, whether or not they choose to work in that manner as a mature artist. So as you know, Joan Mitchell is the one that did all those bright colors in this painting in the center of that paper, and is kind of horizontally justified. And we discussed it in discussion board, I want to say like 2 or 3 weeks ago. This is that same artist. So Joan Mitchell studied the human figure as well. And this is Colleen Berry, a contemporary drawing. And here we see evidence of that academic study. So in order to portray the human figure in such realism, there really needs to be some basic knowledge of anatomy. And so artists will study anatomy quite a bit. And here there's like a ever so slight contrapposto to the pose where there's a little bit more weight on one leg than the other, a little bit of a shift of weight in the hips, and then another shift in the upper torso. And you see that in the smaller drawing on the right-hand side. You also see it in the rendering of the skeletal drawing on the left. And, just for another completely different approach, charcoal on paper here from 2009 to an elderly couple resting. And just in the way that so many really geometric forms here. Like there isn't a lot of soft flowing line. There's more like hatching and deliberate straight lines that somehow work together to create this image of softness and rest. So this is a charcoal. This reminds me a lot of a contour drawing. When you don't lift the pen or the charcoal at all as you're drawing, and you just let the line sort of meander around the form in a very slow, deliberate fashion. This looks like a contour line drawing, like a continuous line drawing to me. So evidently it's significant that it's a piece of 100-year-old paper here. And so this is a schematic linear gesture drawing. So when we would approach drawing just about anything with a quick gesture sketch just to establish the composition, that's exactly what the artist is doing here. We'll stop here and the second video will continue.